in a mouse, it's really only those rare cancer stem cells, less than 1%. The other cells cannot, and you can increase that number by 100, by 1,000-fold. They still will not form a tumor. So what does all of this mean? If we look at this schematic, this gives you an idea. So the stem cell, as I said, is very rare. The rest of the cell, the bulk of the tumor, are actually the non-stem cells. Traditional therapy that we use to treat cancer patients, like chemotherapy and radiation, are actually developed against rapidly dividing cells, the red cells, the bulk of the tumor. Stem cells, by definition, divide slowly, so they're actually resistant to radiation and chemotherapy. So this can explain why, even though you can reduce the mass of a tumor, with time, the tumor may recur, because we haven't killed the seed, if you will, the cancer stem cell. So this is why we're so excited, because now, if we could actually develop therapies that are specifically targeted against this cancer stem cell, as well as using a traditional therapy to reduce the size of the tumor, then we would predict that you would prevent cancer from recurring. So the real question is, can we actually find drugs that selectively target cancer stem cells? And in fact, we actually have a group that we've assembled, shown in this slide. Dr. Antonio Jimeno, who's shown there in the back, is actually a medical oncologist that we recruited from Johns Hopkins. Antonio is actually doing first-in-man clinical trials with 5 new drugs that we believe selectively are targeting cancer stem cells. And in fact, we've actually formed a collaboration with the University of Colorado Cancer Center, and hopefully at some point next week, you will see an announcement come out, probably both in the Post as well as on the local TV stations, that we formed this new program. Antonio has some amazing results with patients who basically were told to go home and prepare to meet your maker, because the doctors treating them thought that there was no hope. So he has actually put these patients on these new drugs. They're in complete remission. So just another wonderful success story of how studying basic research on stem cells is really leading to new therapies for cancer. So I'll just close with one example of another side product, if you will, that is coming out of our stem cell center. And this is commercial products. So this is what we call blood farming. This is developed by the young colleague that was on the previous slide, Joseph Raffelli. So Joseph has actually developed a procedure that allows him to conditionally immortalize adult blood stem cells. Basically what this means is he can culture them indefinitely in culture. No one has ever been able to do this. So what he can actually do, now that he has an unlimited supply of these cells, he can actually differentiate these cells into mature red blood cells. So I think all of you are aware of the shortage that we have with getting a sufficient supply of blood, the concern about getting infections such as HIV, HPV, hepatitis virus. Imagine having a stock of stem cells from a universal donor that you know has been tested, it's pathogen-free, and you can make an unlimited supply of red blood cells. Not only does this solve the shortage, but the blood that Joseph makes, if you go to the Red Cross and get a unit of blood, its half-life or shelf life is 20 days. If you take Joseph's blood that he has now made from human adult red blood cell or stem cells, his shelf life is 120 days because all of the cells were started at the same time, so they have the same half-life. So you can imagine with shipping blood to remote areas where troops may be stationed, this is going to solve another major logistic problem of keeping adequate supply in the field. So I'll just finish by saying that we started as a program, the stem cell program, as a result of a very generous gift from the Gates family in January of 2007. Since then, as of the middle of March, we actually received designation as a center from the Chancellor and the Dean of the School of Medicine. So what does this really mean? we want to build one of the best stem cell centers in the country, right here in Denver. I think we have to do this because I believe that stem cell therapy really is the personalized therapy of the future. So our patients can't just go to the East and the West Coast to places like Stanford and Harvard. We have to have this here locally. In addition, as I showed you, there are already commercial products coming out of our program. This is going to be important for not only the local but the state economy of fueling new biotech companies, and we actually have a new company that's already been started from our stem cell center. Eventually, I think the NIH will actually support stem cell centers. To this point, they have not. For example, we have NIH support for our cancer center. We've had support for 20 years. Just to give you an idea of how you can leverage those funds, when Paul Bunn developed our cancer center in 1987, I think our center had been able to obtain a total of about $4 million in grants. As of the end of 2009, our cancer center has now been able to be awarded over $182 million in grants. So this just gives you an idea of once you achieve center status, and if the NIH begins to support it as a center, what it can do, again, not only for just progressing science, but also for the local economy. So why do I think that we can actually be competitive if and when the NIH announces that they're taking applications for centers? We've actually formed a partnership with Dr. Bill Hyatt and the Colorado Prevention Center. Bill will actually be doing all of the clinical trials that comes out of the Stem Cell Center relative to regenerative medicine. He's actually already doing clinical trials for patients with peripheral artery disease who have blocked arteries, using stem cells to cause the regeneration of new vessels. So to all of those critics when I came here that said stem cells will not be in the clinic for 15 or 20 years, they're wrong. In addition, I've already told you about the new Phase 1 clinical trials program that Antonio Jimeno is developing in collaboration with the University of Colorado Cancer Center. And then finally, we're actually developing a regional center. We have members not only from the Anschutz campus, but also from the Boulder campus, and also for Fort Collins. So we're trying to build a regional center. And the reason that this is important, when the NIH began to support cancer centers, they mandated that they had to be located geographically. You couldn't have them all on the East and the West Coast, or in Texas, where I came from. So we're in a great position here because there is not another stem cell center within at least a 500-mile radius. So I think if and when the NIH does agree to support stem cell centers, we want to be in a competitive position to get one of those grants. So the final slide is just an estimate of what it's going to cost, our budget for the next 5 years. I won't get into the specifics, but we have initiated a new campaign to try to raise $40 million over the next 5 years. And I can tell you that we only initiated that campaign 2 weeks ago, but we've already raised a fourth of that, or $10 million, as a result of another generous gift from the Gates Frontiers Fund and another match by another foundation here in the city. So I would invite you, if you're interested and you're compelled from what you've heard, to join us, tell your friends about it, and help us build the best stem cell center in the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roop. Before you sit down, I'd like to just have a moment with you. You know, Brian and I were so excited when we heard you were coming today. We thought, in fact, when you said stem cell research, you were going to show us how we could regrow hair on the top of our heads. But a little disappointed that we didn't go quite that far. But nonetheless, we are terribly excited about the medical technology and the promise and potential that what your research has shown. Looking forward to that $40 million being raised so we can see the next phase. In the meantime, we'd like to present to you a baseball, which represents our Branch Rickey Award, which we bestowed to a Major League Baseball player who demonstrates the ideas and concepts of Rotary. In addition to that, we have a silver dollar that we'd like for you to keep as a memento of your time with us today. Thank you very much.